Hello and welcome to the Analytics Show, the podcast of business through the lens of data science. But together, we'll dive into learning and sharing where various industries are heading and how data and analytics is at the heart of shaping business growth and productivity. Let's spark different ways of thinking about data and analytics that is relevant to you and prepare your business for future disruption. I'm your host, Jason Tan. I'm delighted you could make it on this journey with us. Hey guys, to continue to get support tips, techniques, and tools and learn from the expert, hit that subscribe button wherever you are so we can keep in touch and continue our lifelong learning together. So, are you using your company data to its full potential? Take our embedded analytic assessment to find out your score. A leading organization like Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google have moved beyond dashboard and embedded data science directly into their daily business operation. With our 3-minute test, you will discover your potential in optimizing customer experience and revenue through embedded analytics. You will gain greater clarity, insight, and advice to embed analytics. Plus, you will receive customized results instantly. Find the link to this assessment in the description of this episode. Hello, good morning, Harry. Thank you so much for dialing in all the way from Singapore. I'm so excited to have you here today. You will be sharing with us a lot of really interesting things about the use of data, analytics, AI, and I believe RPA as well in the healthcare industry with a very different angle though. But welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jason, for this chance to join your podcast.
Well, the pressure is mine. Now, before we get started, I found something really interesting about you. You have been volunteering as a guitar player for your church care group. That's amazing. How did that whole thing get started?
Oh, thanks. I think that I started, like playing guitar when I was in high school. Then that time, there are some activities involving students, Christian students, and I get to learn from the other seniors, and I get to play in a small band.
Wow.
So that continues to my university, and then I think let's not waste what God has given me. So in a small a care group, then I play, or in my church there are some Indonesian fellowship as well. So I play a bass guitar as well there. But I'm not a very good player. That is just my hobby, and for me to relieve some stress. Nothing very extraordinary.
You
Nothing
are
to boast about.
You are too modest about it. I was going to ask, have you considered changing your career and moving into the entertainment industry, becoming a rock star band player?
I'm very sure that I'm not cut out for that. It's just a hobby. I'm very far from that kind of standard, but I do enjoy when I think I play and I sing in my own. I think that is the other aspect. I think we all need to have that kind of stress reliever, something to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I have to learn. I have to ask you for a bit more tips on that one day. But moving on to talk a little bit about the things that you do professionally. Tell us a little bit more about your current role as the Assistant Vice President of IT at IHH Healthcare.
Yeah, thanks. So, if I can summarize my role in IHH, there are two areas, right? One is data, and the other one is automation, right? So, on the data portfolio, I'm in charge for a few things: data warehouse operations, BI, right? And then BI include, data warehouse. We start from the ETL, the extraction, and then all the way up to the visualization of a presentation in a report and dashboards, right? And recently on the data portfolio, I'm also in charge for the ML AI use cases, right? And for the other portfolio, which is automation, I'm in charge for like a few areas. The main is the RPA, right? So I'm setting up a RPA COE. So maybe we can discuss more on that. And the other thing is I'm also leading a small team to build like some small apps using a low code development system, right? Yeah.
Wow.
So basically it's my role.
Right. The no code development, I think, is going to be more useful in coming years, especially the business team. We'll chat a little bit more about that, also the RPA. But before we dive too much into the detail, I want to give a bit of context to the people who are listening to this one. So, for the benefit of myself and listener, can you give us a little bit more context about the company, which is IHH Healthcare, and also the nature of its businesses?
Yeah. For IHH Healthcare, we are a private healthcare group. I think we have a presence in a few countries, mainly Singapore, Malaysia, China, Hong Kong, India, right? And we also have like a arm in Turkey called Acibadem, right? And for me, I'm in charge for the IHH Singapore, right? The IT in Singapore. And in Singapore, we have a few main operations. We have 4 hospitals. If you visit Singapore, Mount Elizabeth Orchard, Mount Elizabeth Novena, Gleneagles Hospital, and Parkway East Hospital, they are under our operations in Singapore. We have around 50 primary care clinics throughout the island, right? And then we have a radiology and lab operations as well. That is not just serving our a group of companies. We are serving also radiology and lab tests coming from other clinics and other hospitals, right? And we also have a TPA business, third party administrator. So something like we manage like corporate healthcare spending for some big companies. So
Can,
that is more or less the operations in Singapore.
So it really consists of multiple portfolio. Hey, so just quickly is the couple of a number of hospital within the Singapore itself is already a couple of hospital, 50 plus of the clinic, radiology network, TPG, third party administration. I have to say TPG is something that I have just learned recently. So I think I have a bit of idea what exactly that is. But just to give more context to the listener, do you mind to elaborate a little bit what is TPG and where does it come into the picture in the healthcare equation?
Okay. Yeah, TPA, third party administrator, is where we handle the spending of big corporations in terms of the healthcare benefit for their employees. So I give you an example. Like,
Yes.
for example, Citibank in Singapore, they ask us to handle their health benefit for their employees, right? So we are given a budget and it's up to us how to manage those. So those employees from Citibank Singapore will be entitled to visit our clinics and also our partner clinics, right? So we manage the spending, and I think I was reminded as part of this engagement, we also give them like some reports as well on what is the pattern of spending, how much spending in a primary care GP visit, how much spending their employees have in acute care on the hospital visit, right? Along with the details, right? How much dental they are using, and we can see some
Right.
pattern. Like for example, end of the year, people try to make use of their benefit to, let's say, buy spectacles, yeah, go for dental checks, those things. Yeah.
Sure. It sounds to me though the model itself is very different to what we have here in Australia, which is private healthcare insurance, and to some extent, I feel like it's also different to the model that they have in the United States of America. How different it is to a, to a private healthcare insurance, or is it different at all?
I think it's different because TPA we still get paid mostly by the insurance. So I think in this case the corporations may engage some insurers, but in that case I think we are helping to manage the spending, and I think we also have the initiative for the corporate clients, right? For example, we see that the spending in the hospital is quite increasing, and we can say, hey, how about we do this program together with you, and we can more or less show that your spending in the hospital will be
Mm.
decreasing if we can do this proactive program. Like, for example, the prevention of diabetes, the awareness of some certain chronic diseases. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm learning something new now that we have got all of this context about the business nature. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about how the private healthcare company like yourself or the industry is utilizing analytics to run the business.
Yeah. If I could add, Jason, on the IHH, I think in terms of the private healthcare group in the world, um, this is what I heard. I think we are number two in the world, just
Wow.
behind the Hospital Corporations of America. That is number one in the US.
Wow.
And because of our presence, right, in multiple countries, and in total, as a group, we have about 65,000 employees, right, throughout those countries that I mentioned previously, right? So uh, that is quite sizable. And with this kind of operations, data is uh, so much. I mean, quite abundant, right? What we have.
Mhm.
So you can imagine. I mean, we have data from the hospital side, the acute care, from the primary care, right? From the lab, from the radiology, right? From our TPA business.
Mm.
So those things is something that in Singapore we hold those data into like a centralized data warehouse. That's where my team is working usually to automate the extraction of data coming from various strategic source systems and put it into a centralized database so that we can have like a 360 degree of analysis
Mm.
for, let's say, our patients visit throughout our ecosystems of establishments, right?
Wow. So that sounds to me it also expand into the things like primary care, operational data analytic as well. Would that be the right way to describe it?
Yes, yeah. So in primary care, for example, we have a lot of analysis. I think recently, the one that I give like some a presentation in the upcoming presentation, we do
Mm.
an analysis on the spending of our patients, right? And then we take a look at how much of our patients are one-timers versus the repeat visit, because we want to see the pattern, right? How much of them are repeat visit and loyal patients that we can take care of them if we have like some program, right? Then we also look at some patterns, like, okay, for each individual clinics, where the patients come from, right? And like, for example, we can see some pattern. Oh, for this kind of a condition, for they normally go to this clinic, right? So that give us some insights for the operation people to plan to cater for our patients' needs, right? And we can see some patterns like how much of the patients are on the acute side, how much are on the chronic side, right? And that give us something as well in order for us to design some program or some campaign. Yeah, so things like
Right.
that.
So that sounds like really useful for the management to optimize the operational perspective, to optimize the operation, and also the resources management to run these private healthcare businesses.
Yes.
That that's amazing.
I give you another example, Jason. I think
Yes,
for the
please.
primary care, because we are concerned about the increasing healthcare cost, right? So, I mean, in within the data that we get, we can more or less see, compare the doctor's charges, right? For example, right? Doctor charges, medicine related charges, or lab and radiology charges for the
Mm,
same type of condition, right? So the concept is something like, okay, for this uh, the same ICD, yeah, with this in like a classification of disease, the code within the same code, we can know which doctor are charging more or charging on average or charging less. The idea is to remind them, hey, where are you in this your cohort? I mean,
mm,
within the same type of disease, this is where you are, right? I mean, similar concept like in Singapore, if we do a payment for our utility bill, we are usually given that report. Okay, for the same type of housing, let's say three bedded rooms, uh, uh, this is where you are. You are above average. Then we have a sort of it help us to manage our, hey, how come I spend so much more, right? Or how
mm.
come yeah, oh, I'm already quite good, I'm on average or I'm even below average, meaning that I'm already quite good. Similar concept. So that will help to manage the healthcare cost as well. Yeah, in that sense.
That's remarkable. What about the emerging technology like AI and ML? Have you started to explore some of these emerging technology and make further leverage on your data?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I mean, I started that AI ML journey sometimes in 2018, right?
Oh, wow.
2019. I think it started with the need for us to give like a prediction of health, I mean, hospital bill, right? Which is like a requirement from our Ministry of Health.
Mm,
Before we admit a patient, we need to give them like a financial counseling, right? And last time I did, what we did was simply, like rearrange within the same case. We used a simple statistical technique, and we give them, okay, this is your 50th percentile, this is your 30th percentile, this is your 75th percentile of
mm.
based on the historical cases. And based on our experience, that was not so satisfactory. It end up a lot of cases. Some patients complain because, oh, I spend so much more than your estimation, right? And yeah, I think that really make us, hey, how can we improve this, right? There must be a way. Then we know that, oh, there's this new technology in AI, machine learning, for you to do a regression, right? So that
Mm,
time our CEO challenged us, hey, can we deliver this, right? At that time, we quickly gather some vendors and we evaluate based on their accuracy of the prediction, and we selected one of them. Then we deploy that within the 3 months, right? That project end up getting like some national award as well as one of our first MLAI related project. And because of that project, that triggered me, right? I think, hey, I'm the one who prepared the data. I'm the one who
mm.
do the evaluation of your accuracy, but I know nothing about the MLAI. What is inside the box, right? It's a
Yes.
blue, it's a black box for me.
Yes.
So that triggered me in 2020 to go into like a 2 years course in NUS to
Yeah.
study about AI and machine learning. So that I'm glad that I make use of the 2 years lockdown period, lockdown to a certain degree, right? Then
Yes.
I make
Yes.
use of that period to study basically, and I'm glad that, I mean, based on that period of study, then I can appreciate more what can we do with ML AI, and what are the possibilities out there, and taking a look at the use cases from various industries, right?
Looking back at this project, and now that you also have uh, gone through that period of the corporate education at the NUS, what is the thing that what is the lesson that you have learned from this combined experience that
Yeah.
you would perhaps do, that you want to apply in doing the same project again? If you were to go back the time, based on what you have learned, how you would do the project differently?
Yeah, I think for our that specific project, we have followed the best practices. Of course, we seek guidance from the more experienced vendor, right? Because they
Mm,
have gone through some kind of similar projects. I think the
absolutely.
vendor that we selected was they had experience previously in the insurance industry, so some kind of a bill estimation is something not so new for them. They have
Yeah.
already done something similar with the insurance companies, right? So we follow their best practices, and of course, I think in terms of data, it's only us that we can tell, hey, this is the relevant kind of parameters that we want to use, right, to estimate our hospital spending for our patients, right? So that I think the lessons learned was, okay, even though we take the best practices from the vendor, but don't forget that you, I mean, as the people who work in the company, will know more in the sense that you know intuitively what kind of parameters that will affect so much on your prediction, for example, right? So
Mm,
yeah, I think we have to combine that. I mean, we cannot rely 100% on the vendor. We have to give so much input, and be willing to experiment with those parameters.
absolutely. So spot on. I think one thing that we often forget is we shine too much focus on the technology itself, and we forget about the important input from the business, because at the end of the day, it is about making the technology working for the business rather than the business working for the technology.
Exactly
So the
right. Yeah.
subject matter expertise from the business is so much more important
Yes.
in order to make the technology
Yeah.
work.
For that project, I think you're very right. I mean, we involve those people, front end staff that are fronting the financial counseling, and they more or less the one that tell, oh, let's incorporate this parameter, right? Because based on our experience, this is the one that really drive the cost up and or down, right? So we take the really the feedback coming from the ground. I think that's
Mm.
important, not to uh, you know uh, as if people at the IT or whatever, we sort of, okay, let's do on the let's focus on the technology side, but actually those feedback from the ground matters so much. Yeah.
When you were incorporating the frontline staff from the ground to assist with the project, how do you solicit their feedback? How do you solicit their input while ensuring then that they are not being replaced and they are not going to lose their job? But these will serve as a tool to help them to be able to do their job even better.
Yeah, I think for this, we try to convince them that this is nothing different from what they have been doing, but we would like to give like a more accurate prediction, for example, for the hospital bill. Because at the end, if the patients or their next of kin or their family members complain, then they are also the one fronting the complaints, right? So based on their experience, then they can tell us the pain points that they really experience on real cases, right? For example, for this case, we expect this much, but end up this much, right? It's because of that. Then they elaborate on because of what, right? Then we, as the technology team, we can translate that. Oh, why not we extracted data to be used as a parameter to help to be more precise on our prediction. right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Now, combining all of these experience and the lesson and the confidence that the team, the company has built up, have you built more different application using the AI and the ML? Can you share with us some of the different use cases that you have done since then, or perhaps plan to do going forward?
Yeah, thanks. I think I have a few. I think maybe I will start with some simple ones that I did recently. So
That is a good
something like
idea.
we did like simple, clustering for our primary care patients, right? From our millions of data points, and we know the patients' locations based on their postal code. Postal code in Singapore is quite a very powerful data, because every building, every house, like if you have a landed house, that's a different postal code, and
Yes,
that postal code, we map it to the lat long, the position,
yes,
the coordinates, right?
yeah,
And based on that, we can. I did like a simple k-means clustering, right, which is unsupervised machine learning technique. Then we can know where our patients' clusters are, right? Which one is the big cluster? Which one is a smaller cluster, right? And that one, when I did the superimposing with the existing clinic locations, that really give us the some insights whether we have positioned our clinics, existing clinics are already optimum, right, based on our patients' locations, or can we
yes.
improve? Where can we improve? Where, which location that we, if we want to set up a new one, where is the best location, right? And along the
Mm,
years, because I did a longitudinal like study along the 7 years, and I can see like this year on year, where the clusters are moving, right? Where our patients
yeah,
are, right? And we can segmentize that based on the age group, right? You can imagine, like, for example, if we want to set up services for pediatrics, of course you want to see those clusters with the bigger age group of like probably 0 to 10 or 0 to 5, right? So
absolutely.
similarly, if you want to set up something geriatric, right, for old folks, then you want to see where are the clusters at that age group, right? Yeah, something like
Wow.
that.
That
Mm,
reminded me similar to the what McDonald did with their location scouting, where they were trying to optimize all the restaurant and the real estate asset they were acquiring to build up their restaurant business. That is a similar idea, but I think that is a wonderful example of
yeah,
make use of that. You mentioned that you were going to use you have a few more examples that is a
yeah.
little bit more advanced. Do you mind to elaborate some of these examples
Sure. I
if that
think
is allowed? Mhm.
the other interesting use case, this one we seek the expertise as well from external, because it involves the voice bot, right? This is
Yeah.
interesting because it, in a way, it helps to automate the reminder of the people going for our health screening. Health screening in our context is quite important, because that's normally when you go for yearly health screening, that's where normally people will find out, oh, I have something serious, right? Be it like, let's say, early stage of cancer, right? Be it like cardiovascular related, some, thickening of blood vessels or those things, right? So, and that leads to procedure into our hospitals. Before that, of course, some lab tests and radiology tests, right? So, this is something important to drive the downstream of the business. But we take a look also from the patient point of view. This health screening is very important for them to discover something early rather than later stage, right?
Mm.
And for this, we get the data from our call center, because our call center is the one that arrange for the appointments. So the call center data will come to my data warehouse, and 3 days prior to their appointment, then we turn out the list, and from the list, then this a voice bot will do a call reminder, right, to our patients. Hey, in a 3 days time, you are going to visit our executive health screening center. So, then would you like to confirm on that? I think that really drives the compliance of visit when we
Wow.
measure that, right? Because you can see, I mean, Jason, for a call versus like an SMS or WhatsApp is more personal, and it is proven that if you give a personal touch, yeah,
Absolutely.
more, yeah, I think they are treated as a human, right? I mean, rather than just you are just a number of a patient, to us, but you are being treated with some kind of personal touch. Yeah, I think that's important.
Hey all, I just want to give a quick shout out about this episode. It's sponsored by the Embedded Analytic Program at DDA. And the Embedded Analytic Program is designed for senior manager and executive in the business team who want to integrate data science into daily business operation and use it to drive customer experience excellence and revenue. And book unlimited strategy session for a full year and start embedding analytics into the business frontline. For more information about this program, please refer to the description of this episode. Now, let's get on back to the interview. I can see how some of those personal touch and also the additional touch point would help to ensure the patient coming in to the hospital for the schedule appointment or making sure that they are following they are coming in. My one thing that I that pop up in my mind, and that is partly purely based on my personal experience though, is that not too sure whether that applies in Singapore, but over the last 2 years, I have receiving so many scam call. I have received so many spam call, and I know I'm not alone because everyone is complaining, and it really annoys people myself to the extent that people are not picking up call unless it is a recognized number. While
Yeah,
I can see the voice chatbot is useful, but how do you solve that problem? To number one, making sure people are picking up the call. Number two is they know that it's not a scam call. Did that problem occur at all in the context of your experience?
I'm sure that some people will just reject the call, those things. But in Singapore, I think fortunately, I think some people, if we are quite observant of the scam calls, there have been a lot of communication from the government side to
Mhm.
remind us. Usually, they have like some certain patterns, right? They
Yeah.
use +65 somehow in a call, then we know more or less this one is like a scam call. Or suddenly we get a call from overseas, right? And we never have any dealing with that country, right? So that is also like some pattern to help the mass, the people to avoid a scam call. And I think we kind of to avoid our calls being treated as a scam calls, then we make sure they know that our numbers, right, in our some of our posters, those things, right, because we have a dedicated numbers for our WhatsApp, for our those communication to patients. Yeah, I think that will
Mm.
be helpful. Yeah,
Um, I want to go a little bit deeper on that, if that's okay for you.
yeah, yeah.
I because you mentioned about WhatsApp, I noticed, I personally noticed that WhatsApp has been really used in some of the Asia country like Malaysia and Singapore, based on what you had to say, as a way for the businesses to get in touch with the customer. I don't really see that much here in Australia. How has that been as a channel of a communication? Has that been much of a success to communicate with the customer?
Yeah, I think in a way, because WhatsApp usage in Singapore is like very widespread. I think it's like the de facto standard for messaging. I think I see that in Singapore, Indonesia. I'm not sure about Malaysia. I think it's more or less the same. right? So people are used to WhatsApp in terms of a communication, and for people who are reluctant to, when they are in the midst of something, whatever, rather than calling them, they prefer to do a WhatsApp, right? And the usage of WhatsApp is something quite interesting. I mean, even during COVID period, when before people entering our premises, then they have to fill up some form, right, to make sure that we are safe. You have not been visiting some country that was recently in yeah. So those things, even we use WhatsApp, and the response is quite good. They prefer to to put in the answers of the forms through WhatsApp rather than like the web driven form. Yeah.
Fascinating. Now,
Yeah.
coming back to what we were talking about earlier, using data science, I'm going to go to flip to the other side of the token or the coin.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, what are some of the challenges that you have faced in using data science in private healthcare?
Yeah, I think that's a very key question. I've been thinking about this. I really have this pain point that probably a lot of people can relate or really share. I whenever I take a look at some use case or something that we would like to implement, I always last time I see people, process, technology, right? But
Mm,
recently I need to add one more. I think I listened to your podcast also in one of the your speaker. I kind of really agree, really resonate with me. I need to add one more, which is data, right?
yes.
So this thing is one of the pain point that I feel. Not a lot of case when I see that, hey, this kind of we need this kind of a prediction or this kind of a model, but I need this kind of data. But often when I take a look at the data asset that we have from this source system, hey, we are missing that. We don't capture that. How we overcome that? It's not so easy to go to the source system vendor. Hey, can you change your
Mm,
screen to capture this data and to incorporate that into the day-to-day process? If they are not used to the filling up the data, right? They may see
mm,
it as a burden, right? So this thing is something that, yeah, I mean, for us, data is the key, but a lot of times, sometimes we realize, hey, some of the key data are not even captured in the first place, right? And that really is like a disadvantage for us in some scenario, especially when it comes to ML AI, predictive model, right? So, and how do we overcome that? Okay, a few things that I can share. Maybe
yes,
this
please.
is something that is quite useful as well for the listeners. One is I see that there's a synergy of if we have like a something like a low code development system, we can deploy a certain app or certain form to alleviate that lack of data. So in their process A, can of course we need to communicate to the business users. We don't capture this in our source system, but somehow we need this data is critical for us. I deploy something to you which we fit into your process, right? Something fast, and then can you start capturing that?
Mm,
That is one, right? And number two, if we see there are some proxy data that we can use, then we can use that first, right? So I give you an example. We want to analyze how fast we are treating our patients, let's say in our clinics or A&E, right? So we don't know when is the time that the exact, the registration, and then the exact triage time, and then the exact time when the patient meet the doctor, and the exact time when the doctor release the patient, right, for them to kind of discharge. So those, when we take a look at the data asset that we have, then we are able to see, oh, this data we are missing, but yet this is the closest proxy, which is, I mean, it's something that we can use, right? Rather than capturing a new one, something like that. Yeah.
I wanted to say one thing though is that I think you are in a better position than most of the people who are managing this part of the team and the business already. What I mean by that is because you data warehouse is part of your portfolio and you came from that background as well, which means you know exactly what sort of data you have got in place and where and how to go and capturing them. You very much have already removed one of the barrier of capturing, and the low code development is really a great example. And one of the surprises that I was learning, I think that is a great idea. Using the low code tools to build the application to and pass it on to the businesses to capture data. That is fascinating.
Yes, I find a lot of synergy on this. That's why I'm quite glad that I'm taking a look at these two portfolio, data and automation, and I mean the
Mm.
low code as well. I find a lot of synergy with that. Something that I can, hey, I'm lacking on this, then I can, fill up from the other portfolio. Yeah.
From my experience, I found that there are a few other things that perhaps you and other people can use as well. Do you mind if I share my experience?
Sure, sure.
So one of the things that I often try to look at it is I want to capture the data as automatically as possible. I try not have to rely on the frontline or a human to capture the information for me, because I know if I will have to rely on that, it will never somehow the process will be broken no matter how well I design it. I mean, of course we can improve it to a certain way, but my philosophy is that how can we capture those data automatically? So which means to certain extent I will then work with the source system, or I will work with the enterprise team, or I will deploy some other mechanic to have them to capture the data in the background without the input by
By
the
yeah,
front line. So that is one mechanic that I always do. The second one is enrich the data with external data source. So you already have the data that you know so much from the customer, from your source system, your enterprise system, multiple various system. But there are more and more data that is available out there where you can purchase and enrich your existing data. So I found that those two mechanics are really useful in getting even more data, or enriching the existing data.
I really agree. I think I also we also try not to burden so much on the front end because they are already too busy, right? Doing
Mm.
the patient fronting is quite stressful work, and if we burden them with inputting the data, so as much as possible, I agree with you. Like we kind of derive the data or take it from something that is automated rather, right?
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good point. I
yeah,
wasn't even I didn't even realize about that. Now
yeah.
the other angle that I want to talk I have prepared in this interview that I want to share, or I want to ask for your you to share the experience, is the robotic process automation. You and I know that it can go hand in hand with the AI implementation. So my question for you is, have you found it such a case in your industry, which is private healthcare?
Yeah, we have a few use cases already in RPA, and it's good that I'm in charge for that area as well. I'm in the midst of setting up a COE, RPA COE,
Sorry,
together
just
with yeah,
very quick one. COE, for the benefit of the listener, is RPA, Center of Excellence. Sorry, go
excellence. Yes, yeah.
on.
Sorry, yeah. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I mean, for us, the COE, what the COE is supposed to do is we are rather than letting every department to come up with the own idea and deploy it one by one, right? We kind of uh, synergically, like put it into like the same common platform infrastructure, and we also manage from the license point of view. We kind of have the economies of scale, right? So we buy this robot RPA license, and we can use it for, let's say, multiple departments rather than dedicated departments. And we, of course, we give the the SOP, standard operating procedure, on how you deploy the automations, right? So it is more in a way the governance part of it, right? We can help our users from various departments, because I see like this more and more people are more becoming like aware of technology, and they kind of have initiative in their own department, and they deploy it, and then at the end, look, when there's an employee turnover, nobody is looking at it, and it becomes like a problem, right? So rather from the start, if we have that kind of a governance, okay, if you have automation, okay, we have like this set of virtual machines for us to host your robot, right? So we will handle your deployment. Those things are more organized. Yeah.
That is a really good practice and lesson that you have just shared. You mentioned you have already got a few case study without really giving out the trade secret. Do you mind to share one case study where perhaps the public healthcare could learn from this experience in
Yeah.
using the RPA?
Yeah, there are a few use cases. I think one that is related to our industry is in Singapore, when you go for a specialist visit, right, and you are insured under insurance company, that
Mm,
insurance company will reimburse your specialist visit if the specialist is part of the panel for that insurance, which from one insurance to another can be a different, panel.
absolutely.
And our marketing team usually have like before the RPA, we have like a staff just to monitor that list of panels, and to make sure that we update in our database, okay, this doctor is part of this insurance panel, right? So that one was done manually, you can imagine, and that it's like very
Wow.
mundane task. And
Yes.
then yeah, recently hey, why not we automate this, right? So we use RPA just to scrape the website from the every insurance companies that we have
Wow.
dealings with, and make sure that our database is updated based on their whatever the newest list, right? Yeah. So
That
that
is
is one of them.
is a great example. Sorry, were you going to say something? Did I just cut?
Yeah. Uh, Other than that, we have like something like a simple process. Like there are some emails, usually some kind of direction, some kind of from our Ministry of Health, and we put it somewhere for the employee, or even communications to our patients, right, regarding the latest policy. We also automate that, right? And the other thing, let's say within the IT, right, we have a few good use cases. I mean, I have a quite a complex report in SAP, our SAP system, right?
Mhm,
And this complex report somehow is generated by the report generator in SAP, and
mhm,
somehow we need to report that in our BI, in about our Power BI. So I need to use my data warehouse. So if I have to extract the raw data and replicate the logic of this report in SAP into my data warehouse, that will be so much of effort,
yes.
right? So what I did was, okay, let's do an RPA on this. Whatever the output from that report, the complex report that we produce in SAP, we just do a script and we put it into a ready, to be visualized in our data warehouse. Then that cuts so much of the problem, right? And that
Yeah,
really save us time. Yeah,
that is fascinating.
yeah,
Now, thank you for sharing them. Now, my next question for you is, based on all of these experience and years of implementing all of these technology, the AI, the ML, the RPA, setting up the RPA, COE. Do you have any advice for the healthcare provider looking to who are looking to go through this sort of journey and adopt the similar technology into their processes?
Sure. Yeah, I have a few things that I can share with that. One is on the data infrastructure. I think
Yeah.
we need to prepare our data infrastructure. So those use cases, be it ML, AI, the foundation is we need to have a data engineering, right, where we extract the data coming from various source systems. Then the ETL side of it, right, data modeling part of it, and then we also put in the data quality and the governance as part of that data infrastructure, right? So that is the base. And then the other thing that I can share is those use cases. I think we need to be closer to the business side. We have to be quite sensitive to their, complaints or pain points that they are expressing to us, right? So normally a lot of those use cases come from business questions or pain points that we based on our interaction with them, right? And
Mm,
that will be follow up with analytics, because we want to know where we are, right, with that question or with that problem. And after the analytics, then we can go to the further step, which is to determine whether we can help using some kind of a prediction model, right, to help them with their business pain points, right? And that needs to be fitted into the process that they are currently doing, right? So that's number two. Number three, I think uh, the we technical people, data scientists or AI engineer, we normally get bogged down with the technicalities, right? So we
yes.
translate that into accuracy, error level, yeah, false positive, false negative. But I think when we communicate that with the business users, I think we have to translate that back into what does that mean to the business, right? I think we have to be more sensitive. We need to have more and more people that can bridge this, right? So it's good
Yeah.
that yeah. So we don't normally technical people and the business, we don't talk the same language. But if there are more and more people that can become the bridge, I think that will alleviate that kind of misunderstanding, or to focus on the technicalities and we forget on the business, or vice versa, right? Then the last one, but not the least, I think in terms of the deployment scenario, right, it's very important that we need to deploy the within the workflow that our operations can take it. Like what you mentioned, right? I mean, if we were to capture data and that really put up the burden of the our operational people, right? So much. Or when we want to deploy something, they need to key in their parameters and then get the prediction. I think that is, even though you may have a quality model, the rate of accuracy is so high. But if the deployment doesn't really fit with the the process, and it add up into their burden, I think it will result in failure, right? So there's a good book on that. I think recently I read, which is something that I can share on intelligent automation from Pascal Bonnet. I think we can learn so much from the deployment part.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I was gonna say, we certainly need more. I think in the UK, one of the guests shared with me, in the UK, they have roles that is called um, analytics translator, who bridge the gap between the tech and the business. Perhaps that is what we need more in the industry. Now, can I give you an IHH Healthcare a shout out about anything that you want to quickly share with the listener, whether it's a job vacancy, anything.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, IHH, I think we are proud of, especially in Singapore and some hospitals in Malaysia. Our hospitals are JCI accredited, Joint Commission International, which is like a standard of accreditation from the US, right? And this is put us quite strongly in a healthcare tourism area. So especially like whenever some neighboring countries like Indonesia, Vietnam, right? Uh, they may have like some cases where they want to send their patients. We are kind of we are proud that we take some of those patients and we have a good clinical result. And recently we have like this initiative called value driven outcome, right? So the concept of value driven outcome is like uh, for the same kind of a spending, or we want to see, we want to objectively measure how is our quality as compared to the norm, to the normal, right? And we want to make sure that our doctors, our hospital resources, right, nurses, whatever, we kind of motivate them to deliver the same or even higher quality and yet at a lower cost, right? So that is something that we support in terms of the data as well, that initiative, right? And with
Right.
our chain of hospitals in Singapore, in Malaysia, right? People have a choice, right? I mean, people nowadays do shop around when it comes to hospital procedures, right? And they want to compare. I mean, you heard some patients coming from other countries. Hey, in the US, I do this for hundreds of thousands, but when I do this in Malaysia, it's like one quarter of the cost,
Mm.
something like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think where I came from, my hometown, Penang is one of the popular destination for the healthcare tourism.
Yes.
So yeah, I have a
Yes.
little bit about that
We have
before.
hospitals in Penang, Clinicals Penang, and I
Yeah,
think Pantai Penang. Yeah.
right. I see. So next time I know, next time I will ask you for a discount code before I go and visit. Now, here's my two final questions to
Yeah.
conclude this interview. First one is, what is your most important first principle?
Yeah. If you ask me on, I mean, with regards to my work, I think I would like to repeat this principle when I see things like, I mean, we have to see things in their entirety, people, process, technology, and now I add one more, which is data. I think that is very important for me. Yeah.
Uh, what is one book that you have read and thought it would have been better for your younger self to have?
Yeah. If you allow me, I would like to mention some. I think for the consulting book, I like to read this McKinsey trilogy, like by Ethan Braziel. They have McKinsey Way, McKinsey Mind. I think that really is very helpful if you, even if you are not in a consulting. I mean, but a lot of our whenever we work, we can apply those methodology, right? One of
Mm,
the thing that really stuck in my mind now is like in a McKinsey Way, there's one big uh, portion which is taught, telling us about MECE, MECE. Whenever we break down, like some issue or we propose something, we have to make sure that it is MECE. What is MECE? It's mutually exclusive and yet completely exhaustive. I think this is something that people, a principle in a McKinsey that a lot of people, bring over whenever they move to other areas. Yeah.
can you elaborate on that a little bit more? What exactly does that mean practically?
Yeah, because in a consulting, whenever we propose some, actions or some, we analyze root causes, they have to adhere to that MISI, mutually exclusive between the factors that we mentioned, but yet as an entirety is completely exhaustive. So we don't miss out any important factors, right? So I think that will train us how to think, like in a very structured manner, and how to make sure that we already address the problem of issues in the entirety, and without jumbling up the factors one to the other. Because a lot of people, okay, I prescribe you 5 factor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but 1 and 2 and 3 is actually they have a lot of overlapping, right? It doesn't show good in their structured way of thinking, right? So that's what I admire about McKinsey. I've already gone through a few projects in my experience with IHH as well, and I really admire how they can adhere to this principle, and the way they do presentation, the way they prescribe something is something that is really, really sharp, right? Yeah.
Fascinating. Wow. Thank you so much, Harry, again, for sharing all of these AI, ML, and RPA in the private healthcare industry. I have certainly learned so much more before I walk into this podcast interview. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason.
Hello. If you enjoyed this conversation, hit that subscribe button so we can meet again. If you don't, I'll be stuck in an infinite loop. So pull that part by clicking the subscribe and help me out. You can further support us by leaving us a kind review from wherever you are listening. At the end of the year, I will choose a reviewer to send a special gift to, and it might just be you. I look forward to seeing you here next week for a new adventure, if I can find my way out of this endless loop. See ya!